Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Shane Beamer, the South Carolina Gamecocks wrapping up their spring game late Saturday night. Want to hop on, talk about a few observations that we had. And I'll start with this. If you're a South Carolina fan heading into 2024, if there's one thing to be really fired up about, in my mind, it's the young talent on this team. My first takeaway right off the rip, Dylan Stewart, he's the real deal. As a true freshman, it's so rare to see. This is a kid that should be in high school right now, step on a field at the SEC level and look like he's going to dominate in 2024. I thought that Josiah Thompson looked really good at the tackle spot as well. If you're South Carolina, you're looking at this roster and saying, we got so much young talent. And if this group can come together in 2024, that's what you're most excited about. Excited to get into this one, talk about a few takeaways before we do. And as always, just want to say thank you to you guys. It's been a blast working through these spring games. The amount of support y'all have shown truly does mean a lot. One, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly, would love to get some feedback and some of your guys' takeaways in the comment section. I say this all the time. Part of the spring evaluation, I learn a ton from you guys as well in the comment section. Would love to hear from you guys. And without further ado, let's get into this one. Now, starting on the offensive side of the football, I wasn't a huge believer in Lenore Sellers. I saw a lot of South Carolina fans really jumping on the Lenore Sellers bandwagon, if you will, and kind of saying this guy is going to be extremely dynamic in 2024. I was a little bit skeptical, and I'll say this. Lenore Sellers checks off a lot of boxes in terms of the physical traits that you want in a quarterback at the college football level. You know he has a massive arm. I knew he was a good athlete because I cover the recruiting trail. I didn't know Lenore Sellers was that special of an athlete. You're talking about a true dual threat quarterback that can very much be a weapon with his legs on the offensive side of the football. But I think what's most encouraging about Lenore Sellers is, I mean, you saw a stark difference between him and Robbie Ashford in terms of Lenore Sellers, Robbie Ashford, both phenomenal athletes. Robbie Ashford does not want to sit in the pocket. He is not comfortable there. He just wants to break the pocket, go run around. Lenore Sellers, he wants to sit in there, deliver footballs down the field. He'll use his legs as an asset, but he is not over-reliant on his athleticism. You blend the big arm with the athleticism. This is a quarterback that can be very exciting for South Carolina in 2024. I thought you saw some good things from the running backs. Oscar Adaway was a guy that they got in the portal that I do kind of like, and that's a solid running back too. We all know Rocket Sanders going to be the running back one in this offense. Deeper running back room than you saw last year, which was a massive problem. And then where my eyeballs were kind of there for South Carolina, it was on the offensive line. And it's an offensive line that was brutal last year. And I think Shane Beamer was talking about it on the broadcast. You were forced to start a lot of true freshmen in 2023. That's normally not a good recipe to having a good offensive line in the SEC. You take a look at South Carolina, I think what excites you the most is, you threw a lot of these guys into the fire as true freshmen. That's going to help them going into year 2, year 3 of their college football careers. Another guy that I want to mention, Josiah Thompson, a guy that, again, should be in high school right now, but he's playing on the offensive line at the SEC level. He's got such a bright future, and that bright future really could be in 2024. You got to get a couple more burgers in him, right? He's got to gain a little bit more weight, but 6'7", the length that he has, how fluid he is as a mover from an athleticism, from a physical trait standpoint, Josiah Thompson checks a lot of those boxes. You can tell that dealing with that if grown man strength, if you will, on the line of scrimmage, maybe struggling a little bit with that, but I think all South Carolina fans were looking at Josiah Thompson, big 74, and saying, he looks the part of an all-SEC caliber offensive lineman with continued progression. You look at the wide receiver spot, and I'm indifferent on it. I would love to hear the South Carolina fans, what your opinions on this wide receiver room is. I'll say this, Mazeo Bennett, true freshman, another guy that we talked about committing to South Carolina. He looks like the real deal. He's a real fluid mover. You kind of feel good about him. And I think the question is who steps up, whether it's the young cats on this team, whether it's the guys you're brought into the portal. You lose a guy like Xavier Legette, who is going to fill that void in production. I always felt like South Carolina last year was kind of Xavier Legette or bust. If you're South Carolina with this wide receiver room going into 2024, you want a little bit more balance in terms of the production. You want multiple weapons that can hurt defenses. So I'm excited to see who steps up heading into fall camp. Now, the defensive line, a couple notes here. We noted it off the bat. Dylan Stewart's the real deal. This kid is going to be extremely special. Again, he should be going to high school prom. He is not just hanging around with guys along the line of scrimmage. He is taking it to grown men on the offensive line as a 17, 18-year-old kid. There's a reason why this guy was so sought after coming out of high school. We saw that this afternoon. And I think one of my big takeaways was South Carolina on the defensive line. I think Shane Beamer also talked about it on the broadcast, is you're really deep. Like, you got a lot of guys that you feel good about. Obviously, Huntley, Tonka in the middle, Gilbert Edmond, Kyle Kennard. I thought Uma Zulu, going into his second year, thought he played some really solid football. I think you're finally seeing Shane Beamer, this South Carolina program, the success that they had on the recruiting trail over the last couple of years start to pay some dividends in terms of not only the star power of this program, but the depth of this program as well. You go to the linebacker spot. I mean, I thought the transfers looked really good. And Bangley Kamara, Demetrius Knight Jr., flying around the football field, really, really good closing speed. I know Shane Beamer mentioned that they're high on a couple true freshmen as well. And then you look at the back end, and I think you're just saying, can we get back to form? This was a group that we thought would really be the strength of South Carolina in 2023. It certainly wasn't the strength. Kind of took a step back from what you saw in 2022. I think the big question is, we know the talent is in there. We know these guys are capable of playing really good football. I think the question is, can we get back to that kind of form? And I think that's largely the question that you want to see and that we're going to be talking about with this South Carolina program heading into 2024 is, I think this team is really talented. And I think this team is as deep as it ever has been with Shane Beamer. Can you get this young talent to really break out, step up for this South Carolina program heading into 2024? Can you kind of translate the recruiting wins that you've had the last couple of years? Now those recruiting wins need to start showing up on the football field for South Carolina. Those were some of my thoughts. Would love to hear some of your thoughts in the comment section. Lenore Sellers guy, I'm going to say this. I'm really excited about that kid in 2024. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.